Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Pigsley for President. So, I just want to admit, I'm having some trouble coming up with ideas for videos. So, if anyone has a suggestion of some topic they want me to talk about, economic policy, foreign policy, domestic policy, cabinet picks, just post them in the comments below. I'd love to answer your questions. I'd love to share with you what you want to hear about. So, but for this week, I want to discuss a serious issue: crime and punishment. Now, I strongly believe that people that commit crimes are due their day in court. No one should be punished without a chance to defend themselves. That goes against the Constitution, against the rule of law. But I also do not believe that people's crimes should be ignored, which is what I'm seeing today. There are several people in the current administration that need to be investigated. If elected president, I would refer the following people to the Department of Justice for investigation. This is a list that I'm slowly putting together. I'm sure it will grow over the years. But here's what I have so far. Let me start with the biggest item in the news: the Epstein files. Well, actually, it's not the biggest. They're keeping it under wraps. But it's the biggest in the news circles that I listen to. I would order my Attorney General, probably Danielle Renee Sassoon, she's my current pick for Attorney General, to release the files according to the law created by Congress, the Epstein Files Transparency Act. I would also instruct her to convene a grand jury and present the evidence against everyone listed in the files. That would include Donald Trump, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Steve Bannon, Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick, Bill Clinton, Brett Ratner, and the list goes on and on. I'm not saying that any of these people are actually guilty of anything, but I'm saying that these people need to be investigated, and if the evidence warrants charges, they should be tried. These people have been mentioned in the files multiple times. However, since millions of pages of the files are redacted and the DOJ has yet to release about 2.5 million pages, we don't know what all these files hide. Aside from the people named in the files, Pam Bondi, Todd Blanche, and Kash Patel should be considered for obstruction of justice, contempt of Congress, ethics violations, violations of the Transparency Act. That's just in relation to the Epstein files. I would also want the grand jury to consider abuse of power for various reasons, including Kash Patel's use of a government jet to go visit his girlfriend. I know that not all of that is actual crimes, but they could be used as character evidence to support other charges. Moving on from the Epstein files to the other big news story, let's discuss ICE. Kristi Noem, Emile Beauvais, Greg Bovino, and others should be considered for illegal detention, human trafficking, kidnapping, abuse, and a list of other charges. I believe that the abduction and deportation of illegal aliens without going through the courts could qualify for all this. Also, I have seen suggestions for attempted murder charges for depriving people in detention of life-saving medication and medical treatment. Greg Bovino specifically, for assault and battery and use of excessive force. Now, if you don't recognize this name, good for you. He's not high up, but he is, or at least was, the ICE commander at large. He's famous or infamous for his use of tear gas against unarmed U.S. citizens in a public space, and he also shot a priest in the head with a rubber bullet. There are lawsuits pending against him, and a judge has a court order blocking him from the use of tear gas. Continuing with ICE, let's discuss Jonathan Ross for the murder of Renee Good. I've also been looking, but I haven't seen a name for the officer that killed Alex Pretty yet. But these two need to be investigated for murder charges. I do know that there is a case in Minnesota against the murder of Alex Pretty. They recently relieved 2 ICE agents from duty for lying to the court. There's a lot of material for charges against ICE. In fact, we could probably build an entire RICO case against them. I also would like to... Pete Hegseth investigated under the Espionage Act. Using an unsecured messaging service to share war plans is a violation of that act. And we know that Hegseth did this at least twice and included people that were not cleared to have this information on the messaging. Under the Espionage Act, it does not matter if it was intentional or accidental. Either way is still a violation. There is no ignorance clause in that act. There's also been discussion that Hegseth was the one who gave the orders to kill survivors of a shipwreck, which is also a violation of international law. As someone said, it should not be charged as a war crime because we were not at war with Venezuela at the time, but instead as mass murder. And I am inclined to agree. Now there's Tom Homan for bribery for accepting $50,000 bribe from federal agents in a sting operation. Then Russell Vought, he is the head of, I believe, the Management and Budget Office, or Budget Administration. He's somewhere in the White House, involving in management and budget. Him and a bunch of other people could be charged for elder abuse, as they're using Trump to get what they want. It's obvious to many neurologists that Trump is suffering from dementia and probably doesn't have a clue what's actually going on. At multiple events, it appears that he does not know where he is or what's going on. They even have signs up all around the White House like it's a memory ward. He has even signed executive orders without knowing what was in them. There are plenty of signs that he's just being used by people around him. Now, that does not mean Trump's a good person. Even when he had his memory, he obviously wasn't. But, you can also throw the board of the Kennedy Center under the bus. Donald Trump, Richard Grenell, Jennifer Fisher, Sergio Gore, John Falconetti, Elliot Burke, all for violating federal statute 20 U.S. Code Section 76I that names the John F. Memorial Center for the Performing Arts, its actual name. They violated it when they decided to rename it in honor of Donald Trump. Now, this is just a minor, though highly insulting offense, and we've seen where that has led us, with everyone, all the performing arts abandoning the Kennedy Center. The list just goes on and on, as we can see. There's so many crimes and ethics violations. And I haven't even got to name escapes me. The U.S. Attorney for D.C., Jeanine Pirro. Though hers is just incompetence and should just be disbarred. She takes all these people to the grand jury, or she goes to the grand jury over all these cases, and they just shoot her down constantly for going after charges that aren't warranted. And now trying to ban legally owned firearms in D.C. I'm surprised the NRA hasn't had more outrage about that. These people and others have been actively disregarding the law and ethics. They do what they want and what Trump tells them to do, not what is best for the American citizens. And they need to be held accountable. So when I take office, I want to hold them accountable. There's little I can do about Trump right now, thanks to the Supreme Court's immunity that they gave him. Perhaps watching me tear down his ballroom, releasing the unredacted Epstein files, and throwing all of his people in prison for their actual crimes will make him suffer. Actually, now that I think about it, if I can release the Epstein files sans the Sharpie, that will be something that he's not protected against. Now, I'm just tired of the two-tiered justice system. The laws apply to everyone, and the powerful need to pay the same price for their crimes as the working class. And that is what I want to stand for. Accountability and equality. If you're going to throw us, the working class, in prison for a crime, the people in the upper class that commit the same crime need to be held to the same level. Now, before ending this video, I want to be clear that I have no intention of actually weaponizing the Department of Justice. I just want to make some suggestions to my Attorney General and let them decide if there's enough evidence to take these people to court. I'm not going to micromanage them. I will trust them to follow the rule of law and apply it equally to everyone. I'm not going to fire prosecutors if they can't find enough evidence to prove a crime like Trump has done. I'm only going to bring this up because I don't want I don't want the rich and powerful to avoid punishment for their crimes. So I'm just going to end the protection that they've bought from politicians. And just hold everyone equally to the law. So, now, I hope I don't want to say enjoyed this video, but I hope that you people watching this do believe the same as I do. There's a lot of shakeup I want to do in D.C. if I'm elected. I hate to use the same phrase as others, but I want to drain the swamp. I want to put honest, competent people in charge. And remove the criminal element. So please like, subscribe, share with your friends, and help me grow the numbers on this channel. Let everyone have a chance to see what options they have in the election. That's all I'm really asking for, is to be an option on the ballot. So that you, the voters, can decide who you want, as the next president. And if it's not me, I understand. I'm just trying to give you a choice. So, thank you for your time, and see you next week.